Hello, everyone. Today is July 28th, 2021. I'm here with Keelia Clarkson. Keelia is an actress and a writer. Thank you for coming on the podcast, Keelia.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here today.
You're welcome. I'm excited to have you on. So, I first came upon one of your articles, How Pornography Ruined Young Men in Bed. And that one of my friends on Twitter liked that. And that resonated with me because years back, I told, or I posted on social media, I was, I was just saying pornography is a very dangerous thing for young men, and we need to be serious about it. So,
hmm
and then I was ridiculed by all my friends, just because it's people sometimes don't take it seriously. But what drove you to write that article?
You know, it's such an interesting thing. I it sounded like such a like the title of the article is a little bit I guess a little bit clickbaity, and it's kind of aggressive in a way. But I was driven to write the article because I noticed in the people that I've known, and just the friends that I've had over the years, it's I've noticed that pornography kind of like it makes a claim on a lot of people's lives. Like a lot of girls that I've been friends with, they've talked about how their boyfriends or their husbands have had an issue with it. And it seems really, really widespread, specifically with men, but it's also growing quite a bit with women. Over the past few years, like we've started to hear like women like porn too and all that type of thing, like trying to normalize it for everyone to take part, kind of. So, I was driven to write that article because I see it becoming so normalized for everyone, and everyone is so desensitized to it. Like even in YouTube videos that, how YouTubers like they have these like groups of YouTubers that get together and make these vlogs and everything. And there was this YouTuber I used to watch, and I used to enjoy his videos because he was, it's like this group of friends would get together. It was really fun and sweet. And I felt like I was watching a group of my friends. And then he started making these videos about like going to like the house of a an actress, a porn actress. And it just started getting so like, wow, that we are selling this as something that is not to be hidden anymore, but instead to be very celebrated. And so that really struck me as so odd that we are just completely desensitized to it.
That's very true. And it has become, you know, it was, keeping that in your closet, very be hidden for, you know, older men, but especially I think your article specifically called out younger men. And for him to post that, that's a normalization in his brain, I feel like. And it's because pornography can be pretty aggressive, I
Yeah.
feel. And I think you mentioned it earlier, like we have normalized this in our society, and it can be detrimental to just basic intimacy for young men. I'm not sure, you mentioned that you have friends who have boyfriends or husbands that watch pornography. Did they mention that there were was there a reason that they brought that up, or what was the context for those conversations?
It was a lot of times it's just during a heart to heart and during a conversation that is like, how is it going with you guys, And I think a lot of women feel pressure to say, oh, it's okay. Like, I'm not jealous about it. It's okay. Like, it's fine. It's normal, for men to do this. And I just find that so, number one, disrespectful, like to yourself as a woman, but also just really unhealthy to enable the men in our lives to consume this media that is actually really, really hurtful. And it's damaging to our relationships. It's damaging to the man himself. You know, a lot of men end up having issues with actual intimacy later instead of, you know, finding a healthy outlet and then, you know, being able to translate that to their personal lives. They end up having issues being intimate with a human in front of them because it's not on a screen, because it's not, you know, their taste or whatever, or their, you know, style of what, you know, the type of porn that they like to look at. Um, they get kind of, it's like they put it in a box, like their sexuality in a box, and it's like they can't take it out of that and can't appreciate a person in front of them anymore.
I completely agree with what you say. You know, that association of intimacy has been stripped from another human being and been placed onto a screen, onto a black box. And the issue, I think, isn't it's that we, until recently, general society, I don't think we're properly educated on how detrimental that can be to a young man. I'm not sure about young women. If, like you said, it seems to greatly affect young men. And I think with that knowledge, there's more power, for a parent or a girlfriend or a wife to say, okay, we can all, even the man himself, if a young boy can understand like this content is readily available on the internet, it's very easy to access, but it can have lasting consequences for your ability to connect with other people, for your confidence levels, and also it's very addicting. Just on
Yeah.
a, I've read articles that say it's as addicting as heroin, and
Hmm.
I can personally, you know, a- agree with that. I've given up pornography for some years, and that was very difficult to do at the beginning. It
Yeah.
is not something that just happens overnight, for sure.
Absolutely, because it's filling a desire that is inherent, and it's not a bad desire either. It's a desire for intimacy. You know, it's a desire to feel connected to another person, and that's a really, really good desire. But the way that it is being um, filled is what's ultimately harmful because it's not another person. That this person is not real to you. And you know, for women specifically, it's it's not a secret that women in porn are a lot of times depicted in really, really degrading ways. And they, you know, a lot of videos will show women being demeaned and dominated in just terribly destructive ways. And so while it's not a bad desire that a man has, it unfortunately does breed insecurity in a relationship for the woman that he's in a relationship with, and a desensitization to intimacy for him as well.
Yes, it does. And I think that knowledge is getting more widespread. More men, more women, more parents are starting to be educated on that subject matter, and hopefully, you know, the next generation of young men, will be more educated on this than millennials and Gen Xers or Gen Zers or whoever falls in that range.
Yeah, we can only hope, but it's hard because, you know, 30% of the internet essentially is pornographic material, and that's quite a bit of the internet. It's very easy to come across. um, you know, very, very young boys are being exposed to this. And so it is a pretty widespread issue for sure, especially with a culture that that weirdly enough, like glorifies sex and intimacy, but then also devalues it. It's really quite odd, but we glorify it as something that is just like so important, the like of the utmost importance that, our needs there are met, and yet we devalue it by saying, "Oh, but you can also get it from this screen. It's totally okay. It's totally normal," you know?
Yes, it is. That is strange, and
Yeah.
that's very, there's a lot of different aspects of society in America, I feel like, that kind of have that double standard of,
Yeah.
we value this, but this, on the other hand, is completely okay and it will destroy you, but go for it.
You're right. Yeah.
So after, I read that article, I continued on. You work for a publisher called Evie,
Yes, EV magazine.
Evie
Yeah.
Magazine. Is Evie Magazine the first magazine you've written for?
They are, yes. I was lucky enough to know the editor-in-chief personally, and when I submitted some of my materials to her, she said, "Yeah, come on and write for us." And I feel very, very lucky to have been given the opportunity to write for them. I really love writing for Evie. I consider them kind of like it's like the thinking woman's magazine. It's like if Vogue magazine had a lot more uh, and meaning in their articles.
What what do you think brings that oomph and meaning into EV articles?
I think I think Evie is really special because it it embraces femininity in a way that I don't see often in other outlets. I see them speaking about femininity in a way that it's embracing the beauty and the strength at the same time and telling women we can be feminine and beautiful and lovely and also be strong and all these things, but we don't have to kind of like forsake the more um, feminine sides of ourselves in order to be strong. So I appreciate that Evie values women in that way that I have not seen before.
That's a really, warm feeling to have in your workplace, to feel as
Yeah.
though they're accepting of, or they're able to instill an environment that empowers, women to feel that balance between strength and femininity. Because even, for men, finding that balance can be important as well. And in a workplace, that can be very difficult, almost impossible to find.
Yeah.
How did you first decide that you wanted to get into writing?
Um, that's such a funny question. I think I was always very interested in writing, and of course I was chasing my dream of acting before that. And writing was something that I enjoyed, but I never really thought I could make money from that because, I just didn't believe that I was especially good at it, to be honest. But as I started writing screenplays on my own and with a friend, I started really falling in love with writing. And then when I met my husband, who is a writer, he really encouraged me to work on my writing more and focus on it more because he said, "Hey, I really think you have a gift there and you should really cultivate your gift of words." And so that's what kind of pushed me more in the direction of writing for magazine. And I've enjoyed it in a way that I never thought I would. I never envisioned myself writing for a magazine, honestly, but I love it.
It seems like an awesome job.
Yeah.
How long you've been with Evie, and how long have you been writing?
I've been with Evie, oh my gosh, a year and a half, I believe. Yeah, about a year and a half. And I started writing a couple years before that. I started writing like screenplays, short films, straight plays, and that kind of material that I could um, produce myself and also just like you know create content myself. I started writing a couple years before that with my friend, and then also on my own.
What types of screenplays did you write?
We wrote short films together, and that type of material. We wrote one play that was published, and then I started kind of writing on my own and doing my own thing. Yeah.
Nice. What was the process to get your play published?
It was actually it was just we found this publisher in the UK, and it's like this online publisher that we found that we just submitted our material to them, and they said, "Yeah, we would love to take it." So it was very kind of uh I don't know how to put it, but it wasn't super, super professional, but it was still getting our work out there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
That's it's when first beginning, it's tough to make something seem professional.
Yeah. Yeah.
And especially if you're doing it on your own, having other, you're an organization that you work for, even just being in the industry for a couple of years, I feel like you're able to make those mistakes of looking pretty amateur in the content you create. For me as well.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think honestly, you kind of have to start there, and you have to be willing to start at kind of a low point, if that makes sense. Um, and build up kind of your credibility and also just learn along the way. I've written um another screenplay since then. I wrote a screenplay over quarantine and made the movie back in April. And I just learned so much from it, like just doing it on my own this time, and just learned absolutely just enormous amounts that I'm like, okay, next time I make a movie, this is what I got to change. This is how I can make it more efficient. So it is about just kind of doing it and learning and maybe not being so professional to start with and then becoming a professional.
Yes, and defining professionalism in your own way too.
Yeah.
What were some of the biggest mistakes and or lessons that you learned during your most recent screenplay and making your movie?
Well, so it was a very, very big undertaking. I decided to write a feature film, so full length,
How long
Um,
is that?
eh, I'm not done editing it. I am thinking it's probably going to be about an hour and a half, maybe an hour and 20 minutes. So it's a pretty big project. Wrote it all by myself and then directed it myself, produced it myself, starred in it, of course, because I'm a narcissist. Um, but it was a really, really big project, and I learned, um, number one, to kind of kind of just go with it to begin with. Like, you're not like this isn't going to be your best work in the world. This is the stepping stone to getting to the best work. And every time you take this next step, like it's going to be better than it was last time. So I'm already, wanting to work on another script and everything. And I already know this next time is going to be better because I know what to put on my plate, how much to put on my plate, um and how to get everything together. I know how to put a project together a lot more now. So it's yeah, it was a very big project, but I'm glad I did that.
That's awesome. Congratulations on getting that finished.
Thanks. Thank you.
What's your film called?
It's called Leading Lady.
Leading Lady? What is a
Yes.
brief description of it?
It's essentially, it's sort of like a write what you know type thing. So it's a young girl living in New York, wants to be an actress, and she almost has her wildest dreams come true and then gets them ripped away. And it's sort of how does she deal with that? How does she grow from that? And then of course I throw in, um the cute neighbor that is just down the hall that's pining for her. So I throw in a little bit of romance, throw in a lot of big lessons that she learns. It's a lot of fun.
Oh, wow. Where can people watch that?
So, because I'm still in the editing process, I am not sure yet. But eventually, I'm hoping to get it distributed maybe by a very small distributor. But if not, I will find a way to get it out there myself. I want to submit it to festivals for sure.
Nice. I wish you the
Yeah.
best of luck with that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So, moving back to writing, how did your work with Evie, what would you describe your writing with Evie as?
So I would say I tend to cover a lot of women's cultural issues, a lot of relationship issues. I delve quite a bit into film and television, the entertainment industry, and what it's like for women working in the entertainment industry. And then I love to throw in some good book recommendations every now and then. But I really love to mostly cover what are young women facing today in our culture.
What do you think are some of the most pressing issues young women are facing today in our culture?
I think women are facing the question of what does it really mean to be a woman? And what does it mean to be feminine? What does it mean to love being a woman? What does it mean to be a strong woman, a woman that has a career, but a woman that also loves that she is a woman? A lot of different questions I think we face today that are getting very, very murky and kind of difficult to answer.
What do you think brings that murkiness and clouds the answer there today in particular?
I think that that's a pretty difficult question to answer, but I would say we we seem to be walking away from the idea of femininity as like we kind of treat femininity as inherently weak, and so I think that's an issue for us that we're thinking in order to be strong women, it's like we can't be feminine. I think that is a huge, huge thing that is contributing to women's um, loss of their femininity and their identity as women. They don't really know what it means to be a woman anymore because how do I be a strong woman, but I can't also just be feminine? So I think that's a really, really big issue.
That that's yes, I can understand that today because I feel as though that issue is also resonating with men as well. It's finding that balance between, not wanting to portray a form of toxic masculinity, but
Hmm.
then finding that balance, with I read one of your articles and I'm not sure which one, but in there you state that listening is women are generally seen as more empathetic, are better listeners, and that listening is, more of a feminine characteristic or attribute, but
Hmm.
that's also very strong. And even for me as a man, being able to listen and be empathetic, which is not a, I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but not an innate skill. I wasn't born with that, something that I had to practice deeply. It's
Hmm.
very strong, and it's definitely comes with the balance where you have to learn to listen, but you also have to learn, where you do have some authority and you do have the, you know, not, I don't want to say the right, but there is some credibility to your words in situations and to the actions also. And,
Hmm.
for women, I'm sure, that ability to act on what they know is correct is more of that masculine aspect, and possibly something that women struggle with more. Or
Hmm.
what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think I've absolutely I personally used to struggle quite a bit um with embracing femininity because I think I was so tired of what we think of as toxic masculinity, and so I thought, I need to be more upfront and aggressive, and I need to, take not take I don't know what word to use right now, but not take, crap from people basically. And so I thought I really need to put myself out there in a more aggressive way. And I saw being feminine as being really, really weak. Um, and so that's been a journey for me is like it's to be able to empathize with someone and to be able to listen and just appreciate their words and try to understand and put yourself there. That's not weak at all. That's incredibly strong. And and so it's wonderful that, even though you weren't necessarily naturally gifted that way, that's incredible that that's something that you try to embrace.
Yes, it's something that I've learned and been taught, and you kind of go through life. And I'm not sure, you said that you struggled embracing your femininity, and you felt as though you had to be, stronger and, you know, more. Would you say confrontational? Is that a correct word or no?
Yeah, yeah, I think more confrontational, more feisty, you know. Yeah, more I guess definitely yeah, more feisty, more kind of spirited, if that makes sense. And
Yes, it does.
um yeah, I'm
More
not
passionate
that's not
about.
the word. Yeah, that's not the word I'm really wanting to use, but passionate in an aggressive way. Yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah.
I can resonate with that too. My first job, I was very passionate in an aggressive way about just the smallest of things. And, with someone that I was working with, those sort of little, you know, pieces of aggressiveness just accumulate and accumulate and accumulate. And then one day it kind of blew up, and
Yeah.
it wasn't working for me personally.
Yeah.
And I knew that there was an easier way, a way with less resistance. And so that's what really, I was like, I have to. It's definitely takes a willingness to change before someone can actually make these, even, just start attempting to change small habits of,
Mm,
being less, aggressive or less confrontational towards people, and kind of just being more empathetic towards how they might think, even if it's not necessary, even if you don't agree with it completely. Just,
yeah. Oh, it also takes humility, it also takes like maybe the conclusion I came to here isn't right. Or maybe I should listen when people, a lot of different people from different parts of my life call me this, say that I'm like too aggressive or say that I'm mean instead of saying, no, I'm not. I'm just standing up for myself. It's, well, maybe they have a point, and it's about being humble enough to see that.
Yes, being humble is very difficult. Do you think that you've been able to gain humility through age?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's so funny. I think I think what, back when I was say like 20 or something, I just thought I had everything figured out. I thought I knew the way the world worked. And I think I've become so much more humble. After understanding that no, I don't know everything about the world. I don't know how it works. I might come to the wrong conclusion, and I probably need to be put in my place sometimes. Yeah, absolutely. Humility comes with age for sure.
For sure. And being able to say that maybe my conclusion wasn't correct for me is extreme. Even with, humility and all that, it's still to this day like, wow, I was incorrect about that for this long. That's a hard pill to swallow.
Yeah, it absolutely is, especially I think when you wrap up your beliefs in like your identity, who you are as a person. I think when you hold such beliefs so tightly like that, you're going to be disappointed eventually because you were probably wrong about something. And so when you base your identity off of that, it's not going to go well.
No, it's not going to go well. It, yeah, that is a huge game. That's a huge topic today in America. You know,
Hmm.
identity politics, people identifying with whatever they feel they're very, connected to. And they might have a very strong connection to that aspect of reality, whatever that may be, gender, race, religion,
Yeah.
name
Yeah.
it. But things change very suddenly sometimes, and even if not suddenly, over a long period of time, things
Yeah.
change. And like you said, if someone's holding on to an identity after a while, they might be, very devastated when they realize that they can't actually maintain that identity.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's, well, we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
You wrote an article that stated the benefits of getting married in your 20s.
Mm-hmm.
What you're did you marry in your 20s?
Yeah. I was 23. Yeah.
That's relatively young for millennials.
Yeah.
What what do you feel are what do you think are the drawbacks of getting married later?
I would say what I like or some of the benefits I would say about getting married in your 20s are you really get to do so much more life with this person. And this is, assuming you've met a good person who is worth committing your life to. Obviously, you shouldn't rush into it just because, well, I want to get it done before I'm 30. That's really not a recipe for any successful marriage. But you really get to do a lot more life with this person, and you get the opportunity to take your life when it's still very much a lot is up in the air in your 20s for a lot of people, where you're probably not living in the city that you're going to live in forever or doing the job that you're going to do forever. And so you have an opportunity to grow in a similar direction as the person you're with instead of having a really full life, full career. I'm planted in this city and I'm trying to meld my life with this person, which typically is more likely if you are getting married in your 30s or 40s. It's a lot harder because you have your life by then. Um, so I would say those are a couple of the benefits of getting married young, but also just that you will have less baggage. You'll probably have less breakups, at 21 or something. Not that you should necessarily get married at 21, but you'll have less breakups than if you are 35. You'll have less heartbreak. You will have a lot more hope in your future, I would say, because there's still so much left to be determined. So I would say those are some of the benefits for sure.
Baggage definitely accumulates over a lifetime.
Yeah.
And, like it is very tough. And before reading that article, I didn't think about it like that. And, you know, it's true. Like when in your 20s or in college, there's very little baggage on everyone. Um,
Hmm.
everyone's pretty like-minded in that environment, or what generally wherever we are in our late teens and early 20s, we're with like-minded people. And that's just way easier to find a soulmate in that time than it
Hmm.
is afterwards, because of work, because aging parents and aging family members, because we're just I actually a few months ago met a woman who was 39 and had a child when she was very young, I think early 20s, and she was like, yeah, I'm stoked because I had all the energy in the world for my child, and now I'm just like, if I had one into my mid 30s, it's like tough because you have less energy. And that was also like a big eye opener. I was like, wow, I did not even think about that at all. But I have a
Yeah.
50-year-old uncle who has a few single digit children, and that's not easy.
No, no. And it's also, um, it's a little bit sad for the kids because it gives them just a little less time with their parents.
Yes, it
Yeah.
does. And
Yeah.
for like you said, for a relationship, I mean, that's a lot of development. I can't even, like, for me, from the age of 23 to now, I'm about to turn 28. That's been so much development in those 5 years. And
Hmm.
I'm not sure about you, how you feel you've developed in those years, but how do you think that plays into, with having a partner versus not having a partner?
Um, I would say it's exciting because you get to have a partner in really, really um formative years. And so you have someone that knew you as such a different person and has known you in every version of yourself as you've grown into who you are now. So while obviously it's not, you don't have to have been in a relationship with someone through all these years in order to have a good one, it is a really unique experience to be with someone through such formative years.
That's it. It is very unique, and I think if you can make those years, then that's huge. I mean, once you're in
Yeah.
your late 20s, like, even for people like millennials, I mean, just the way we speak about relationships and marriages at 27 versus 24 is so different, because that reality of we're not young anymore. We're, you know, getting that we're going to be in our 30s pretty soon. And like, our parents were having children at this age. So
Yeah.
it, it can also help with, I think, you know, some of that, you, you, you mentioned it earlier, young women may have issues with their femininity, young men having issues with their masculinity. If you have a child, or if you even have a husband or a wife, I feel like that is a lot less, you're a lot less susceptible to those issues, to
Mm-hmm.
those feelings. I read an article a few months ago on just how being single in your 20s can really alter your thinking. I'm not sure, I don't want to say what the article said, but I think, I apologize, I lost my train of thought.
It's okay.
But I think, all right, now I got it. I think, having a more grounded feeling, being more confident in yourself is easier with, a wife or a husband versus doing it alone. And
Mm, yeah.
that's, not, I think, it should be in like obvious. It is obvious if you look back on it, but if you're not told it, you're not told, like, you mentioned it too, like, I think it's your last point in that article, you know, financial and career success will be easier if you're married in your 20s versus if you're not, if you go through it single. And
Yeah.
I think it is, having gone through my 20s as a single individual, like, it can be very stressful for people. And I have a 60-year-old neighbor right now, 60-some-year-old neighbor, and you know she says it herself. She's like, wow, my life would be so much easier if I had a husband.
Mm,
And
mm-hmm.
it's just having that one form of connection, like, it just seems like a huge lifeline versus having nothing.
Absolutely. You you are given a life partner, you're given a best friend, a person to come home to talk to when you had a rough day and to help you sort out your feelings and the way forward together because everything when you get married, everything you do, like every good thing you come across is a net good for the marriage. It's not just about you anymore. And so you're kind of driven to have more good that you are bringing in for yourself so you can share it in your marriage.
That is really funny that you bring up that point. That's a good, that's a good argument
Yeah.
for capitalism too, which, you know, I'm a huge proponent of. I don't want to bring that up, but, like, just on a side note to everyone, that's a reason that capitalism and, I think people like Jeff Bezos and Richard Branson right now, who are getting a lot of
Hmm.
smack for space tourism, you know, I don't think that it's necessarily, I think that what you just stated, that mentality of bringing in more for your family is huge. Like, if you have a child, boom, your whole thought pattern right there about money is completely
Right.
going to change. If you have
Right.
a wife, even, it's like, you can't just quit your job if you have a wife. But
Hmm.
if a man is single, or if you have a husband, but if a man or a woman is single, then, there's no there's nobody that's going to be like, there's no one that's going to be deeply affected by it, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's like also kind of another lifeline with society there too. Like, society, I feel like, also benefits from more marriages too, from that sense, because it forces people to be more stable, to be more grounded, and to really be thinking about the well-being of themselves and the people around them.
Absolutely. Yeah, it fosters a lot of stability and um and also more stable children,
Yes,
that become the next generation. Yeah.
yes, and that's definitely, you know, there's a lot of reasons today. I mean, with perpetual social media, perpetual news, perpetual, just being on our computers and screens all the time, and it just being not being habitual to be on a screen. Even, we're speaking about pornography at the beginning of this, but
Mhm.
that can go. You've written articles about how Instagram can be deeply, you know, terrible for young women and their self-image and their,
Yeah.
you know, views on beauty. What do you think are how do you think Instagram and social media is affecting, young women today or young men?
Mm. Well, I would say things like Instagram, Snapchat, just all kinds of social media platforms they can be so damaging. They're wonderful because you can connect with just anyone in the world, but they can be so damaging because essentially we are all sharing our highlight reels, of course, like my Instagram feed makes my I look at it sometimes, I'm like, my life looks so cool on here, and it doesn't look like me sitting at home with an article deadline, or me sitting at home and the AC went out and I'm just sweating. It's a terrible day and I don't want to get any work done. That's not what you see. And also, unfortunately, because of the filters, a lot of young women are super affected by these very fake filters that we were able to put on our bodies and our faces, with Facetune and everything. I mean, we don't actually know what someone looks like anymore. And that's become really normal, which is so strange. But it's like we're not even posting pictures of ourselves unedited anymore. And so it's like in the past, like, um, Photoshop was really just for, models, actors, that type of thing. Now it's for literally anyone who posts a picture online. So we have this incredibly harmful image of what a woman is supposed to look like. And then we see a lot more young women these days going to get plastic surgery, where, plastic surgery used to be for, when I was little, that was like for women in their 60s and 70s who were like, "Oh gosh, like I'm, getting older. I want to look this way. I don't like these wrinkles, whatever." And now we see very, very, very young women, people younger than me, teenagers, going to get all kinds of injections, which is it's an interesting development, and it's pretty unhealthy in a lot of ways.
It's a very interesting development, and I just one subtle note. I remember, I was at a gathering. There were two girls. They were taking a photo. One girl was like, "Oh, I can't take a photo right now," and then another girl was like, "It's fine. We'll filter it." Oh, and she was like, and then
Hmm.
she was like, "Oh, you're right. That's good." And I was like,
Yeah.
"Wow, that's a dramatic change in." They must do a lot of. I haven't used a filter in a way that I think that you know the way you're describing it used. But if it can make someone suddenly just click, like, automatically, they already know that she's right. If you use a filter, I'll go from looking this way to that way. Then it's like this is a
Yeah.
very widely practiced routine among females. I'm guessing males do it too.
Hmm.
And so yeah, and I've noticed the plastic surgery as well. And my friend kind of put it into perspective for me, he was like, even if you're on the table, your body has got to know, even if you're out, your body has got to know what's going on right there. And some of these plastic surgeries are very intense. Some of the,
Mm,
just cosmetic ones, like around the face too, it's like, whoa.
yeah. Yeah. And it's also such a big commitment because it's assuming that you're gonna want your lips to look like this forever. And also that what you just injected your face with will last for a significant amount of time and won't I mean I'm not confident in the amount of years that we've had plastic surgery around. Like I'm not confident in the longevity of it. And what would it look like if someone got it done when they're 20 years old? Now they're 60. What does their face look like now? I don't think we've really seen that.
No, I don't think so. Especially because I don't know about, but full development, especially, I mean, there's still a little bit to go in the teens. S-
Yeah.
So, that's an interesting point too. It's like most people we used to, in the early 2000s, even in the late 2000s, most plastic surgery was on older people.
Hmm.
Now it's like older women, and now it's like a lot of younger women, a lot of women our age, younger than us. And if social media is, and we've all seen it, I've seen it, it can be really, it if that's your perception, like even if it's for a man's pornography for a woman, they just see these beautiful images constantly. And
Yeah.
I know women too, they will like, you know, these, you know, pages of, nude, not nude women, but semi-nude women all the time. So they're constantly seeing beautiful girls, like constantly, just like scrolling down like five. And there's definitely maybe some plastic surgery, there's some filters, there's some, intense
Yeah.
background makeup and intense editing of the photography even before it hits the Instagram page sometimes.
Yeah.
And that can be tough that can be like just as bad as pornography too, just as far as how it rewires an individual's brain.
I think that's a really good point. Yeah, it's almost like the girls' version of like looking at women in this lens of this is not natural, this is not normal, this is not what women look like. Um, yeah, it absolutely like skews our perception of women. So I just don't even follow pages like that 'cause I'm like, no.
Nice. Yeah. I noticed that on your article, on you post a lot of articles.
Hmm.
How do you approach an article?
Well, it's funny. I feel like I actually learn or I use techniques that I learned back in like sixth grade when I was learning how to write an essay for the first time. So, you know, I make my statement. I say, okay, this is kind of my statement for this article. And I'm going to come up with like three things, maybe four things to back up why I'm saying this. And so by the end, I think you will at least see my point of view or agree with me about what I'm saying. So I definitely try to do a lot of research beforehand and make sure that this claim is something that I, you know, can actually believe in and write about with some authority. And yeah, it's a lot of fun approaching each article and coming up with kind of a new way to reach the readers. Yeah.
Is dating or writing on relationships your favorite type of writing, or what is your favorite type of writing?
That's definitely up there. That is something that I tend to write about quite a bit. But I really enjoy writing about the entertainment industry and women in the entertainment industry. And yeah, I enjoy those a lot.
What what do you write about regarding the entertainment industry and women in the entertainment industry?
I've written a couple pieces specifically about um, why nudity in entertainment is actually really harmful to not just the people viewing it, but also the person, normally the woman, performing it. And so I used stories from Amelia Clark, of Game of Thrones. She's kind of spoken out about how she has felt pressure after her time on Game of Thrones to, keep doing that. She doesn't want to do it anymore, but she feels a lot of pressure, she's said. And a lot of actresses in times past have talked about the pressure that they feel as well. And then another piece that I wrote about was how we portray teenagers as sexually active quite often. And that's something that really just needs to stop. And it's not because it's not as if, yeah, that there are teens that are sexually active. True. There are also so many that are not. And so it's really harmful to portray this as like a totally normal part of adolescence. So that along with like drinking and doing drugs and going to crazy parties and all of this stuff, we portray teens as like these kind of crazy maniacs when really like I was not like that when I was a teenager. And I know some were, a lot of people were not. A lot of people had their little group of friends. They did their homework. The craziest thing they did was like drink a beer at a party once. So I think that was another piece that I wrote about that was received pretty well.
Nice. It makes a lot of sense because like that's a, where did you go? What part of the country did you go for grade school?
In Los Angeles. I was born and raised in Los Angeles and stayed there until I was 21. Yeah.
Okay. That,
Yeah.
I don't know how Los Angeles is, but I was born and raised in Orange County, and you
Mm,
know, that was high school. Like, there are images that people attempt to uphold, and
yeah.
really it's all a front and no one knows it. I mean, some people are definitely, doing things that are a little bit more mature than the
Yeah.
rest of the general population, but you know, that's correct. Like, I can't even think of any movie other than Superbad, which kind of actually, it doesn't really portray teens doing crazy things. It kind of portrays like what you're speaking to, like them having no idea, being way too young, and then trying to get involved with it and just failing terribly.
Yeah, I mean, I would say like another example is Pretty Little Liars. Like those girls were I mean number one of them was having an affair. She was like 16 having an affair with her teacher, which is like and they presented this to young women, you know, the grand majority of viewers were probably in their teens and they're portraying it as like kind of fun and like, romantic, which is just insane. Um, and then right now, Euphoria is a very, very big show. And while the actors are all of age, it's totally like legal, to see their bodies. We are supposed to believe that these kids are like 16, 17, something like that. And so it just strikes me as so odd that we want to see supposed kids in these really, really adult situations and like treat them like adults as if they have the mental and emotional capacity to handle these things. When it's like a lot of adults don't have the mental and emotional capacity to handle that kind of intimacy. So it just strikes me as so odd that we really treat teenagers like they're adults and they're not.
Yes, we do. you know, the movie that's coming to mind is I'm Gonna Kill John Tucker.
Oh, yeah.
That's a pretty crazy one too, where it's like three girls and this one guy, and it's high school, and it's like a whole
Hmm.
love affair, and it's like that's a pretty intense sort of dynamic for high school.
Yeah. And what's so funny, I used to love that movie growing up. Like it was just as like an 11-year-old, it was like looking at these teenagers, which really these were like 25-year-old actors. But
Yes.
looking at these teenagers and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, they're so gorgeous, they're beautiful, these girls." And the men or the high school boys look like men and I just want to be these people. And it's kind of scary that that is what kids look at and that's what they think when they see these people that are supposed to be teens doing these like crazy adult things.
Yes. And like you said, they're 25, so our, perception of even how they're supposed to act, like when we see, I think just as a human, you naturally can kind of tell how old someone is. And if you see that they're
Hmm.
25, you're going to expect them to act like they're 25. But then that guy's wearing a Letterman and they're all in the cafeteria. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, you know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a weird dynamic for it's something that I've always realized, but have never been able to articulate. And that's awesome and really helpful, I think, to people that you're willing and able to put that into an article and release that to the world.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Did you ever have reservations to writing, or you were an actress previously and you still are? How do you feel about putting content out in the world?
About the entertainment industry specifically.
Not specifically, we were talking about that, but about yourself, like being a content creator by putting out articles and releasing your
Mm,
opinion by creating a screenplay that might have, a little bit of you inside of it and a little bit of your way of thinking and releasing
yeah.
that. How how has that changed for you, and how have you know, some people, for example, would never be willing to ever, just put that out there, especially, in a writing form. So how has your mentality regarding putting your ideas out in public changed, and ha, have you ever had reservations?
I mean, yeah, of course I've had reservations, especially being a very private and introverted person. Totally have those reservations. And part of what I used to love about acting is like, oh, I get to be someone else, you know? But I've come to realize that the most effective art will have a lot of ourselves in it. And so that has really helped me feel more comfortable with being myself and expressing myself in writing form in my articles, but then also in my screenplays and in my film. Yeah, there's a lot of me in what I wrote. In like a lot of the two main characters for sure. There's a lot of me, and but I think that is what really connects to people. The kind of art when someone is really digging in themselves and just coming out and saying, "Okay, here's me. Here's a feeling that I struggle with every single day." That is the kind of art that will affect people and reach them. So it it's it's not as scary when I think about it that way.
No, it's not. It's actually very exciting if you think about it that way.
Yeah.
And you mentioned you called yourself an introvert. You believe you're an introvert?
Yeah, yeah, very much so.
What's the reason you say that?
Um, I I tend to really value my alone time And I also just in like social situations, I will just reach this point where I'm like, I physically can't make another sentence come out. I'm sorry, I can't, you know. So definitely like to kind of be off in my own world a lot.
That's nice. Did you have any siblings?
Yeah, yeah, I have two older sisters.
Okay, nice. And are they your age or
They're actually like a good amount older. They're like 5 and 8 years older.
okay? That
Yeah.
kind of makes sense to me. I mean, because that sounds like, to be off in your own world, a very only child-esque thing. And even the reason I asked if they were your age is because I've met people who are like, yeah, I have a 15-year-old brother, and it's like you're pretty much an only child, and that explains a lot right
Yeah.
there. So, and you said
Yeah.
they were quite a bit older than you, so do you feel that way at all? Like you were
Yeah, you know, I did kind of a lot of times feel like the only child because they would be going through like the same um phase of life at the same time. Like they got to go to high school together, and then there I was back in middle school, like just all on my own kind of. So I very much did feel like an only child, but without the actual benefits of being an only child.
I understand that. There are some
Yeah.
drawbacks too, definitely. All
Are
the
you an only
attention.
child?
I'm an only child, yes,
Yeah.
and there are benefits, but then they're like, ho ho ho. If I had a brother or sister to take that on, that could be
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah, definitely. I can imagine that.
So, but you are a first generation American, correct?
Yes, I am.
And
Yeah.
we spoke about it before the podcast, but your parents are from, where are they from?
So my dad is from England and my mother's from Colombia. So super different places.
Super different
Yeah.
places. I have a
Yeah.
friend who's half Italian, half Vietnamese. So,
Wow.
yeah, very
That
different.
is quite the mix. Yeah.
Yeah. How, yes. How, how was growing up with two parents from very different cultures and then being a first generation American on top of that?
You know, I honestly wouldn't trade it for the world now. But definitely like growing up it was really it was a strange experience because I would constantly feel like I'm not American. Like, so I'm sure you can also agree with this because we talked about how you're also a first generation American, but I would like at school when kids would be like, "Oh yeah, you know, I'm a direct descendant of like John Adams or whatever." And I was always so jealous because it felt like I had no ties to this country. I had no one here. Like a lot of my family, you know, was just everywhere in the world, just like spread out everywhere. And, you know, never like grew up around any cousins or anything. So, yeah, it was a lot of times very it felt lonely in a lot of ways because it's like yeah, my sisters are kind of the only people that like have this same experience in my world. You know, all my friends were, you know, very American. And but it was still such an interesting experience getting to experience these two really different um cultures as well as the American culture. But, you know, my dad like being from England, just like a poor little Cockney kid, and then my mom coming from just a small town in Colombia and the things that they brought in, you know, the traditions and the recipes and the kind of cultural, I don't even know how to describe it, but I'm sure you understand the cultural differences. That, you know, they don't always understand the American thing.
No,
It was still, yeah, it was a lot of fun.
it can be a lot of fun, but like you mentioned, now it can be a lot of fun. I mean, for me, now I respect. the fact that, I'm a first generation American. My parents were born and raised in Iran, but
Mm,
being younger, it is a lot tougher because, you know, it's a dramatic, I wouldn't say dramatic, but there is a stark contrast in the upbringings of a first generation American and then an American whose family, especially if an American's family has been here for multiple generations,
yeah.
then
Oh, big time.
it's like, the whole, way of thinking in the household is completely different. So the way the child's thinking is shaped is usually completely different. And
Mm-hmm.
I listened to this podcast of a Korean American, and he put it really well. He said growing up, he always felt like he had one foot in the Korean world and then one foot in the American world. Or, yeah, that's it. One foot in the Korean world and one foot in the American world. And he was always kind of being tugged in between both.
Yeah.
And like he mentioned, one time he went to his church and he was wearing Vans, and I was like, why are you wearing Vans to church? And that's
Yeah.
kind of like, I'm sure because he wanted to Americanize himself and be more to fit in better with his school. But then it's like when you go home, that's not how your family or your culture generally dresses.
Mm-hmm.
So, but to continue, he's eventually stated that, he was a Navy SEAL, and he said once he joined the SEALs, that completely vanished for him, having, being a part of an organization, committing to something with other people,
Yeah.
and, just being a part of something with a wide range of different types of Americans. For me personally, I was on a high school football team, and
Mm.
much less dramatic than being in the Navy SEALs, but it still was that organization where, I was with a bunch of Americans from a bunch of different walks of life, and it really helped me balance out that sort of it was a little bit of discomfort, or not knowing, where I should stand. And
Yeah.
did you have any moment where, or do you have anything that you attribute to being, you know, gaining that sort of confidence or that sense of oneness with being a first generation American?
You know, I have just really learned to love it. I've really learned to love the difference in my upbringing from my friends' upbringings, and to see it's actually it's so funny. Like, I'm sure you have had this experience, but there are things sometimes that, like, I see a family doing something a certain way, and then I'm like, that never happened in my family. And I realize, like, this is an American thing. Like that, oh, that's why we never did that. So it's just so funny to have those little moments. But I've honestly really I've learned to love that experience. And and also, I mean, who really is like American? I don't know. Like, America is such a weird melting pot of, like, everyone came here at some point, right? So,
Yes, especially where
yeah.
you and I are, which is New York City and Southern California.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's a
you
lot
were
of,
in Southern California before.
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So that's been a also a really great part of it, is like I've kind of always been surrounded by a lot of diversity. Like, even for the people who were here for generations, like, there's still a lot of diversity. Yeah.
Yes, especially, and I think it's seeping into. I think they're mad about it, but it's seeping into the Midwest and the South as well. That diversity.
Yeah, 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 definitely.
So you left Los Angeles at 21.
Hmm.
What brought you to New York?
Oh my gosh. I think it was just like I had always wanted to live in New York, and it was just a magical place for me. And LA, I think having been raised there, just didn't have that magic that it might have for other people. And I was so tired of it. And I was in a place in life where I just really needed to like find my own place in my life. And so moving to New York was kind of a natural reaction of just needing to just figure out who I am. And also just I had always wanted to experience New York.
How has it been?
Aside from the pandemic, I've loved it.
Really, the pandemic was hard to handle there,
Yeah. We were definitely hit the hardest for a good while there in the beginning
the
when
beginning.
everything would when people didn't know what it was, which was definitely the scariest time. Um, but yeah, we were definitely hit super hard and that was hard because it's like this city that I love it's like the city got sick, you know? Um, so that was difficult, but things are finally pretty much normal, pretty much here. So, I'm just thankful that we're back on track. Yeah.
I'm thankful we're back on track as well, and I hope that Delta variant, is not too serious and
Yeah.
we can remain on track.
Yeah.
Well, Keelia, thank you for coming on the podcast. Are there any last words you would like to say to the audience?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me today. And I would just like to say for anyone that stuck around and listened to me yammer on, thank you so much. And I hope, you enjoyed what you heard. And you can find me on Instagram at keelia.clarkson. I post pretty regularly enough. And then you can find my articles on EV Magazine. It's a great magazine. So many awesome writers there that I love to be part of the same magazine as them. Yeah.
Great. We'll make sure to link to both your Instagram and your EV account.
Awesome. Thank you.